G'day all, it's Colin from PCTLC and thanks for joining me. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the installer of Fedora. I'm not keen on this installer. I always seem to get a little bit lost when I'm using it, and I've been messing around with it. Hopefully I can get my skills up to speed to make this video, but that still doesn't mean that I'm really going to know what I'm doing. So I have a fair idea. But I don't install Fedora very often. So this is the Anaconda installer, quite different to most of the installers within Linux. And I'm going to take a bit of a closer look at that. We're exploring Fedora 35 this week with Big Daddy Linux Live. And I thought my main focus on this one is going to be the installer. So that's why I called it the Fedora Installer Explorer. So let's have a look here what I'm going to do. I've got three different Virtualboxes here. One, we're going to do a whole disk install, just a very simple install. This one here is ATA, so I'm going to have two disks. And what I want to do is I want to set one of those. It's got this one here, the ATA and the NVME. They've both got two hard drives connected to it. So I've created two hard drives on those. I want to simulate the setup that I've got on my main system. So if I was going to install this on my main system, I've got a 250 megabyte hard drive, NVMe SSD, and another 1 terabyte. So what I'm going to do here is a 40 gig and a 50 gig, just for space purposes. But I'm going to set them up in a way that they're set up in my system, which means it's got a boot partition, I've got a boot partition, a swap partition. I don't even know if I got a swap on this one actually. So it'd be a boot, a swap, a root partition, and I'll even do a home partition just to spice it up a little bit. So see how we go there. I don't have a home partition on this one because I use a data drive. But the data drive will be the second hard drive anyway. The only reason that hard drive is there is just to show you how the installer works and how to select the different hard drive. So let's get on with that. First of all, let's do the whole disk install. So what I've found is if I test the media and go in from here, I have a few issues with getting full screen. So I'll just go straight to this one on top, which is the live, and enter that. So we're going to choose Try Fedora and close that. And we'll sort out the display first. Okay, so we have full screen. So what we're going to do is click Activities there and choose Install to Hard Drive. So this is going to be a very simple install, be an install to the hard drive itself. When it comes to this type of install, you're going to choose that hard drive, and if there's anything on there, it's all going to be deleted and reformatted, so you're going to lose everything. So make sure you've backed up everything that you need. Australia, English Australia, yep. Now if I chose the other one in the grub menu, the second one down, when I press continue, it does all funny things. So here it should be okay. And there we go. So keyboard is English Australian, that's correct. So what we need to do here is choose our time and date. So Perth, Australia is correct. So what we do is we select this button up on the top left corner, done. So we select that. And then we need to choose our hard drive. So that's click on the hard drive. Now there's only one there, so it's automatically selected. So this is going to be an automatic storage configuration. And if you click on that, it'll deselect it. Click on it again. Now it's selected. That's what that tick is. And we'll see when we go into the other installs with the two hard drives, you'll see the difference with one with a tick and one without. And that's the one we're going to install to. So we click Done. And I believe by default, it will install with Btrfs. that's what it'll do. So let's begin installation and off we go. So that is the install complete. We will finish the installation and shut down and check out the file structure that it's created during the install of Fedora 35. Be interested to see that, so let's do that. So this one here just shuts the installer down. I don't think there was a prompt anywhere for restarting, I don't think. Not that I've seen. And I have full screen out of the box after install, which is pretty handy. Happy with that. And we have a setup here. Welcome to Fedora Linux 35. Start setup. You got your location services, automatic problem reporting, third-party repositories, provides access to additional software from selected external sources. They include popular apps as well as firmware that is important for some devices. Some proprietary software is included. Let's turn on third-party repositories and click Next. Online accounts, I will skip that for now. And now we put our name and so forth in there. So my real name, and tab that, I'll just use Colin. And it's got the green tick of approval, so I don't know if it's green. Looks green. My glasses aren't the best. And let's click Next. And of course, a password. And as you can see, the little box there changes color to blue once everything is correct, and you get the tick of approval as well. And we click Next, and we are all done. Start using Fedora Linux. Now let's have a look at disks. Oh, actually it's doing its thing, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Welcome to GNOME 41. No thanks, we won't do that. Now, a little trick here, Fedora, I believe, runs Wayland out of the box. But if you want to know if you're running Wayland, just press Alt and F2. You get a run command, and you just type R for restart, which restarts the X display. And if you press Enter, you'll see that it says restart is not available on Wayland. So that's how you know that you're on Wayland. Let's press Escape from that. Let's check out disks, GNOME disks, and this is our hard drive here. So as you can see, let's just zoom in on that. We've got a file system here. That'll be our boot partition. It's FAT, so it says it's FAT. So that'll be a FAT32, or maybe reporting as FAT. I'm not sure. I can't read that whole thing. I don't know if there's a way of reading that whole thing. And this one here, file system partition 2, 1.1 gigabyte, and that's an ext4. Not sure what that partition is for. What's it for? So it's 1.1 gigabyte. I can read it down here, can't I? I'm reading in here. Let's go back to this one. It's a FAT32, there we go. Mounted at boot EFI, okay. This one's mounted at boot. So that's got a boot, and I have to think that's something to do with ButterFS and maybe doing snapshots or something. And then you've got this one here, which is ButterFS, mounted at file system root. So there we go. So that's how it's structured that on a simple install. So now what we'll do is shut this one down. Well, it's taken its sweet time to shut down, that's for sure. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe I'll shut the Virtualbox down. Let's close that. Power off. I'm getting impatient. I don't want to wait for that. Okay, so let's do the Sata hard drive first. That's attached the ISO storage. So as you can see, there's two hard drives here. This one is 50 gig and this one is 40 gig. So we'll attach our ISO, Fedora, okay, and let's start. Okay, let's just full screen that. Not that it'll make much. Oh, actually, it went straight up to full screen. Okay, that's cool. Try Fedora and close. All right, so this is going to be a bit more involved and a bit more complex on this one. I'm not sure what I want to do with this one. We've got GNOME disks, and I wanted to simulate the fact that we might come across partitions already there. Now we could do that with the second one on NVMe. There's no difference. It's just an NVMe, and the only difference is it comes up with NVMe 0, 1, partition 1. It's the same as SDA 1, SDA 2. It's the same thing. So we could do two different ways here. So what I'm going to do with this one is click the activities button. Let's start the installer. So I'm going to do both of these installs the same, but I'm going to approach it differently on each one. English Australia, continue. Keyboard is correct. Let's just click on keyboard anyway. All right, so you can add a keyboard here. Let's just click done. Time and date. Perth, so it must be remembering that somehow. Click done. And installation destination. So now here we got two hard drives. So what we're going to do is click on this hard drive here. So we're going to select that one. This 40 gig, we're going to pretend that that's my data drive. So just imagine you got data on that. You don't want it to be touched. You do not want to do anything with this hard drive here. So that would be my scenario on my main system, except the main one that we installed to would be the bigger one. The smaller one. So the one that I installed to will be the smaller one. So what we'll do is that's not click both. So we'll go for the 40 gig, and the 50 gig can be the data drive, or we'll pretend it's the data drive, and we'll install to the 40 gig hard drive. So what we're going to do here is we're going to select custom, and we're going to select done. And that takes us into a manual partitioning, as you can see up in the top left-hand corner there. If we focus a bit down the bottom here, you will see two boxes here. One that's the total space, and the other one, the pink one on the left, is the available space. So they're the two things that will tell you how much, what you're working with and how much space you've got left. Now, by default, Fedora35 uses Btrfs. Now, if you want to use your normal ext4, then we select standard partition. So that's what I want to do. I want standard partition at the moment. I still don't know a lot about Btrfs, so I'm just going to run with a standard partition. Now, what we can do here is click on the plus button, and it says there, add a new mount point. So that's what we're going to do. And the mount point will be boot EFI. Now I've got that option because I've booted in EFI. So we're going to do boot EFI and the desired capacity. Now if you hover over here, it will tell you or give you some examples of valid inputs. And you can see there capital G, little I, capital B for gigabytes, M for megabytes, and terabytes is just in my dreams. So let's go for, I want to do 512 M for megabytes. I think that's correct. Yep. And add mount point. So if we have a look up here, we can see the mount point is /boot/EFI. Desired capacity is 512. It's a standard partition, and it's EFI system partition. Now, because that says EFI system partition, it probably should automatically make it FAT32. So the label here is EFI boot. Let's make a label there. And then what we're going to do is, now we've got available spaces changed. I've got 39.5 gig left, so we're going to add a new mount point. So the mount point here, if you hover over the mount point, there's no examples there because you have a drop-down list there. So this one is going to be swap, and it's going to be 4 capital G, lowercase I, and a capital B for gigabytes. And we'll add mount point. And we'll just mount, there will be no mount point there, but we'll label that as swap. And now we've got 35.5 gigabytes to work with. Let's click the plus button, add a new mount point. This one is going to be the root partition, and the desired capacity, we shall give it, say, 20 gigabytes. 20 gigabytes, add mount point. Label here will be root. And then the rest of that we shall use. So we've got 15.5 left. We'll make a /home. Why not? Because we can. So we'll go 15.5 gigabytes and add mount point. Now this one here is going to be home. So what we've got here is, now you can see with the /home, you've got an option to change the file system to what you wish. It can be, there's no option of Btrfs because these are the standard Linux file systems here. And that will be the same with root here, standard partition, ext4, and the same options there. And then you've got your boot EFI. It's an EFI system partition, and you get the same options in there as well. So now there's 1.97 megabytes remaining from 40 gigs. So that's us done. So we're going to select done. And it's going to give you a summary of the changes of what we've done here. And it'll always have destroy and format. It sounds pretty harsh, destroy, but that's the reality of it anyway. Create and format, create device, create device, create device, create device, create format swap, create format ext4. So that's the rundown there. And we're going to accept the changes. And we can begin the installation. And that is the installation complete. So let's finish install. And like I said before, there's no option to restart or anything in here. So let's finish install, finish installation, and that's done. And let's power off. I'll power off so I can remove the ISO. And that one powered off pretty quickly. So I don't know what happened to the last one, but that was pretty quick. So we'll just remove the ISO for that. And let's start up the installation. And here we are at the setup again. So we'll just quickly start setup. We'll just go next. Turn on the repositories next. Skip that. So we'll I'll put column there. So if you see watch the blue button here when you change, it'll keep highlighting blue unless you put something that's not meant to be there. So if you put a capital, you go, well, it says next, but it shouldn't allow you to go, well, it does. That's interesting. So it's actually saying that's okay. All right. So let's go next. So this will be used to name your home folder and can't be changed. Next. Password. And next. And we are all done. And I think I'll skip the setup for GNOME 41. No thanks. And there we go. So if we open disks, and there's what we've set up there. This is 537 megabytes, although I said 512. FAT32, boot EFI. And root partition size 21 gig, ext4, mounted at file system root. And then we've got the home partition, which is 17 to 16 gig free, 2.4% full, mounted at home. And then we got the swap partition, 4.3 gig. So that's exactly how we did it. And there's our other hard drive there, untouched. There was nothing done on that disk anyway, so it's completely untouched. So that is that install complete, and that went pretty smoothly. So we'll power that off. Okay, it's at this point where we had the power off problem, isn't it? Let's close that and power that off. So things going quite smoothly there. What I want to do now with this one is the NVMe one is probably the same thing, but what I'm going to do is set it up in GNOME Disk to simulate my setup here. I probably won't have a home because I normally use a data partition, so we're going to have a slight variation there. But the goal here is to do what I would do on my system, which is there would be existing partitions, and that's what I want to know how to set that up. Would it be better off to delete them or is it easy enough to write over them? That's what we're going to look at. So we're going to add the ISO back in again. So this one here tests the media and starts Fedora live. Yeah, I have some janky stuff going on if I use that, so I just use this one here in Virtualbox. Works fine. So we'll full screen that because it seems to be full screen works out of the box with Fedora. Here I am changing it instead of just full screening the Virtualbox itself. So I'm having some trouble getting the disks reported here. Now, if you look at this one here, it says device NVMe 0N1 and this one 0N2, reporting on the same line there. I don't know what that's all about. So I did a DNF sudo DNF install gparted. Did that. So I installed gparted, and if we have a look at gparted, it's got the two disks there that I can work with, but couldn't work with the other one. So it doesn't matter which one I use. This has got to be a Virtualbox issue, I'd have to think. I've spent like 45 minutes trying to figure out redoing the controllers and all that. It's doing my head in. So what we need to do here is normally what I would do is in disks, I would click this one here and format disk, and I would do a GPT. So that's what I would do normally. So what we're going to do here in gparted is create partition table, and it's going to be a GPT, and apply that. So what we're going to do is a new partition. Going to make that 512. It's going to be primary. It will be EFI boot. It'll be FAT32. It'll be EFI boot. Add that. Make another one, a new 4096, which will be a 4 gig primary. It'll be swap. We'll make that Linux swap, and we'll call that swap. Add that. And then the last one will be a new one. We shall use the remainder of the disk. That will be root, ext4, and root. Add that and apply that and apply that. Close that. So normally what I would do here is manage flags and put the boot flag on that. But Fedora should be able to do that. Well, actually, that's probably what would be anyway. It would be if I was doing it on my original system, it would have that. So that's manage flags, and that's just do a boot ESP like so. Okay, close that. No need to apply. So now we can start the installer, hit the super key. Easier to hit the super key than hit this and come all the way down here, because that's just so much of a waste of travel. So just keep your mouse down here, hit the super key, and you're right to go. So I'm hoping the installer will see these two hard drives. English Australia, continue. So keyboard's Australian, it's Australia Perth time zone, and click done. Installation destination, so it does see the two disks. So here's the difference here. If I was on my main system, NVMe 0 and 1 would be my main system, and then that would be my data drive. So this installer is quite easy to recognize your disks if you know which one's which. So I want to work with this one, which would have existing partitions on it. I can do an automatic and just install with Btrfs. I'm going to do custom, and I want to see what I can do with custom on this one. So let's go done. With this, it doesn't show everything out of the box. You got to click the drop down here under unknown, and then you get these things here. So Btrfs is the standard. So if we go to standard partition, so I want to keep it standard. Now what I want to do here is work with these partitions. Now this is where I find this a little bit difficult, is working with existing partitions in this installer. So I need to create a mount point for that. It says here if you click the button, the plus button, you can add a new mount point. So I'm going to try that, and I'm going to do a mount point of boot EFI. I don't need to put a capacity because it's an existing partition. So I'm hoping that will do something with that. Now normally you can update settings, but that's not available. Now as you can see, we're working with the 40 gig hard drive, and the available space was this much because they're existing partitions. Now to me it's not showing any mount point here. Now we can reload the storage configuration from disk, which means whatever changes I made will be undone, I would believe. Maybe we have to put the capacity in there. Let's have a look. It's 512. So we can see up here it's 512, so we'll do that. 512M, isn't it? We use the letter M, so let's do that. Add mount point. Still hasn't done anything though, has it? And then add mount point here, which is root 35.5 gig. Add mount point. See, it's okay, so I didn't see this error down the bottom here. So failed to add new device, so click for details. Unable to allocate requested partition scheme. This is what would happen if I was on my main system. I've got existing partition set up, I think, pretty much like this. Let's just check that out. Let's go to disks. Now that's my 250 gig, so that's what I've got on my main system. That, a swap, and root. That's all I have. So that's what I'm simulating here. So if I was to install Fedora and I wanted to keep the same system, that's why I did this in Gpart at first. I wanted to simulate what I have on my system. Unable to allocate requested partition scheme. So standard partition it won't work with by the looks of it. You can click here to create them automatically. So the only thing I think I can do is delete it, remove the selected mount points, or I could type the mount point in here. Boot EFI. Now I've got an update settings. Okay, so that works. Interesting. So we do this one here. That one we don't have to do, but this one here is root. Update settings. That didn't work. Mount point root. You must create a new file system on the root device. Well, it doesn't let me do that, does it? Update settings. No, it's not going to do it, is it? It did this one. Standard partition, EFI system partition. Okay, so we can click reformat. Right, there we go, reformat. So that's what I have to do. Oh, that wasn't obvious to me. Okay, reformat, root, ext4. Okay, so that's done. The boot EFI one, reformat, EFI system partition. It might have picked that one up anyway. And the swap, reformat to swap, update settings. Okay. Okay, so I think now we are okay to go. So that's doing what we wanted to do. I think that reformat to me wasn't very obvious, but I think we're right. So that's how we work with existing partitions, is by manually entering the mount point and reformatting, and then it's okay to go. So now we can click done, I believe, and it's going to show you what we're up to here. Destroy format, and then create. Okay, which is exactly what we want anyway. So let's accept those changes and let's see how we go. And don't forget, nothing is done until you hit this begin installation. We don't touch your disks until you click begin installation. So it's sort of like, I think it caches or whatever it does in the background, everything that you want it to do, but it will not do it until you click this magic button. So let's click begin installation. Okay, so that is the installation complete. We're going to click on finish installation and we shall shut down the system. Hopefully all went well. It's always a quick shutdown after installation, but it always seems to be very slow shutting down from an installed shutdown. We will remove that ISO from there. Okay, and let's start. Let's have a look at this. And we have our setup to go through before starting. So start setup. Let's go next. Third-party repositories next. Skip that. Full name. I like just colon only, and next. Password. And next, and start using. And I'll skip the welcome to GNOME tour. And that's the installation complete. So let's have a look at this. What did I do there? Let's have a quick look at this. So we can see that so we've got our EFI boot there, FAT32 mounted at boot EFI. Our swap, obviously swap, no problem. And we have our root file system ext4 mounted at file system root. It's still not picking up the two different disks. It's got them named up here, but you can't see them both. Unless there's another way of doing that. I've looked at these menus, but I cannot find anything that separates them into two different disks on the side here, which is really strange. It's either a Virtualbox issue or it's a GNOME disk issue within Virtualbox. I'm not sure. So there's three different scenarios there with the Fedora installer. The first one to the whole disk using Btrfs, very simple install, no problem. Second one with the two SATA disk drives, creating our own partitions, fairly simple process as well. It was when I was working with the existing disk with the partitions already there, That was slightly confusing, but I'm glad I've got that on video because that just gives me something to work with next time I do that. And I think in the past when I've used this disk, I do tend to get out of my comfort zone when I'm using these installers. And the best place to learn them obviously is in Virtualbox itself. So you don't mess things up, because that I just found it a little bit confusing with existing disks. Everything else was not too bad. To be honest, when I first started using this installer, it scared me. It's so much different to a lot of other installers, I must say, the way in which it works. But it's like anything, once you start using it for a little while, it's not so bad. Once you get to know how something works and it becomes familiar, then you're not dealing with the unknown, and you're not dealing with, possibly blowing up partitions. That's why I do these things in Virtualbox, and I will be looking at Fedora, no doubt, just having a look around, see how it works. But my main focus really was to look at the installer itself and check out all those different scenarios. And I thought it worked out pretty well. Despite a little bit of confusion on the NVMe install, everything else went really smooth, I thought. So it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. I have used this installer a few times. I just don't use it on a regular basis. And that's what gives me the heebie-jeebies. A lack of usage on the installer itself. So I hope that helped increase someone's knowledge on the Anaconda installer. Just in case you yourself was a little bit unsure of it as well. There's a little bit of knowledge there to absorb, definitely. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting and informative, and thanks for watching.